Welcome back to the Amplified Podcast. It's good to have you with us. Today we are going to be wrapping up the book of Genesis. We've been talking about Genesis now for 24 weeks, and we've seen some amazing things with the book of Genesis. We got to see the creation of the world, and we saw the destruction of the world with Noah's flood, and then we saw the establishment of God's people and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and now all of his sons. And now we're getting ready to see them live in Egypt for a very long time. This was prophesied by God that they would live far apart from their people, from their land for 400 years. And now we're seeing the fulfillment of it here in this last chapter. And so we've seen quite a lot. And today we're going to get to see kind of how it all turns out for these boys that we've been reading about for the last few chapters. So if this is your first time watching the podcast, I want to welcome you. Of course, this is a story, and so you would benefit from seeing the earlier podcast, but I'll help catch you up today. This podcast is for anyone who's trying to understand the Bible better. Maybe you're Gen Z and you've been raised in church, or maybe you've never been to church and you're just trying to understand what the Bible's saying. Maybe you're lost in the details. Hopefully this podcast may help you clear some of that up. And so today we're going to see how Jacob, who is renamed Israel, blesses his sons and speaks prophecy over his sons. And so in the last episode, we saw how they all moved to Egypt. Of course, we know that Joseph is the most powerful man in Egypt outside of the Pharaoh himself. All of the wealth of the world is now funneled through his hands, but now they're all living in Egypt together, and they're actually living in the best part of Egypt. And it's not for a little while that they're even turned into slaves, possibly not even until several hundred years later. You have to think that, they're moving into Goshen. They're moving into the nicest part of Egypt because of the sacrifices and the influence of Joseph. And so right here is kind of like living in the Palisades or living in the Upper East Side. This is the nice part of town that everybody wants to live in. And this is where the Israelites settle for a long time, right here in this area. But the next time we find them in Exodus, and they have been slaves, and they've been slaves for a little while. And so today we're going to kind of see how Joseph's story wraps up and how their brothers' stories wrap up as they set up for the tribes of Israel. So hopefully that catches you up. So go ahead and open up your Bible to Genesis 49. Genesis has 50 chapters. We're going to read the last two today. You can open up your Amplified Bible, or you can open up your Alabaster Bible. Maybe you've gotten one already. That's great. You can get one for Genesis, or I don't know if they've made Exodus yet. That'd be interesting to see. They've made all the Gospels. They've made, the poetry books, and all the wisdom books. And so today is a great day to read the Bible. So here we go. Where we left off was Joseph has just brought his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to Jacob to bless them because Jacob is about to die. Jacob, as we know, crosses his hands when he blesses them, and Joseph says, "No, you've put your hands on the wrong one." And Jacob says, "I know what I'm doing. I'm blessing the younger as the older, and the older as the younger." Possibly this could be because he was originally the younger brother, and so he wants to, give the younger brother the better. It's kind of just another example of a little bit of the curse of the firstborn that kind of hangs around all the firstborn children all the way up until Jesus. Jesus breaks that curse, thankfully. Thankfully for me, because I am the firstborn. And so, but this was before that. And this is just another example of the younger brother doing better than the firstborn, even though the firstborn is supposed to be the one that holds the tradition. So then Jacob says, "Bring all of my sons together." Of course, they're old men at this point, but they're ready to hear what their father has to say for their lives. And it says this in Genesis 49, Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Assemble yourselves around me, so that I may tell you what will happen to you and your descendants in the days to come. Gather together and hear, O sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, Jacob, your father." So what we're going to do is we're going to write down each of the names of the sons and whether or not what was spoken over them is good or bad. Some of them, it's very obvious. This is a good prophecy. Some of them, it's kind of ambiguous. And then some of them, it's like, wow, I cannot believe that this is the last words you're hearing from your father, because that is rough. And so first off, we're going to start off with Reuben. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength and vigor, preeminent in dignity, preeminent in power, that should have been your birthright. But unstable and reckless and boiling over like water in sinful lust, you shall not excel or have the preeminence of the firstborn. Because you went up to your father's bed with Bilhah, you defiled it. He went up to my couch." So this one is both good and bad. So he's telling him right off, you were my firstborn. You were the beginning of our family. You were supposed to be, the promised one, the one that was supposed to be great. But you cannot control your lust, and it boils over in you like water, because I know what you did. And it's possible that this is the first time he's finding out that his father knew about this, or maybe he's known about it for a long time, and this is kind of like the judgment over him. But he's basically taking away this birthright of the firstborn. Again, kind of the curse of the firstborn here. He's taking away this birthright from him. You shall not have the preeminence or excel as the firstborn. And so that's because many years before, we literally just see it in one verse at the very end of a few chapters back. It says that Reuben slept with Bilhah. This was one of Jacob's wives. Now, this was not his own mother, but this would have been his stepmother. She didn't give birth to him, but she was still married to Jacob. And so this was more than just incest in this case. This was an act of trying to take over authority in the household. This is what Solomon or Absalom did with Solomon's concubines. This was an attempt to usurp the power. And so he kind of gets a good and a bad prophecy spoken over him, because he was the beginning of Jacob's life as a father, but things do not end well for him. So next we have Simeon and Levi, and they are kind of paired together. Simeon and Levi. Simeon and Levi are brothers, equally headstrong, deceitful, vindictive, and cruel. Their swords are weapons of violence and revenge. O my soul, do not come into their secret council. Let not my glory be united with their assembly, for I knew nothing of their plots. Because in their anger they killed men, and honored man Shechem and the Shechemites. And in their self-will they lamed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide and disperse them in Jacob, and scatter them in the midst of the land of Israel. So this one for these boys is all bad. All bad. This has to do with many years before. Simeon and Levi are related to their sister Dinah. She's their full sister, and this is they're all children of Leah up until this point. And Dinah is unfortunately raped by this man named Shechem. I think it was Shechem. It was either him or his son. And he decided he was actually in love with her. And so he tries to get his father and Jacob to work things out so they can marry each other. And so the boys say, fine, we'll allow it and we'll forgive him if the entire town is circumcised just like us. And they say, okay, we can live with that. 3 days after they've all been circumcised, when all the men are not in fighting health, They go in and they slaughter every man of the town for this one act of violence. Every man has to pay the price. And then they lame all of the cattle so that they can't walk, or maybe it's so that they can't produce again. Either way, they weren't as good as they were before. And so Jacob is bringing to light, their horrible wrath, and he's saying that he's trying to confess to God himself. Of course, God already knows. I did not know about their plot. Please do not hold it against me. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. And it says, I will divide and disperse them in Jacob. When we look at how this prophecy actually came out later on, I looked this up, and it says Simeon's inheritance was scattered with Judah. Levi was dispersed throughout Israel as the priestly tribe, but turned into a blessing. So Levi actually doesn't get any land at all. They don't get to be a tribe at all. But this ends up being for their good, because God uses Levi and the Levites as the priestly tribe. They're the ones that get to take care of the house of the Lord itself. Simeon, his inheritance seems to be scattered about throughout Judah, and Judah has the largest portion. And we're going to see why in just a second. So not great for these guys, not great at all. It says in chapter 3, it says this, or I'm sorry, not chapter 3, the third son. Third son is Judah. It says this, Judah, you are the one whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son shall bow down to you. So your brothers are going to bow down to you. Judah, a lion's cub with the prey, my son, you have gone high up the mountain. He stooped down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who dares to rouse him? The scepter of royalty shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh, the Messiah, comes, and to him shall be the obedience of his peoples. Tying his foal to the strong vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washes his clothing in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker and sparkle more than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. So much of this is actually a prophecy about Jesus. All of the kings of Israel come from Judah. And so this includes King David. This includes King Solomon. Unfortunately, it includes King Absalom. But it goes all the way down to Jesus. And Jesus is the one who is Shiloh. He's the Messiah. He receives the obedience of his people. And talking about tying his foal to the strong vine, his donkey's colt to the choice vine, we see that when Jesus enters Jerusalem, the week that he is to be crucified, he's riding on a donkey's colt. So that was fulfillment of that prophecy. He washes his clothing in wine. This is talking about the sheer amount of blood that he's going to shed for dying on the cross and being whipped 39 times and all the beatings. That it's going to look as if his clothes are dipped in grape juice because of all of the blood that Jesus shed. And his robes in the blood of grapes. And his eyes are darker and sparkle more than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. It's possible that Jesus had really white teeth. Obviously, I would hope so. It would make it even more difficult to see him as the Messiah if I were Peter. If I'm looking at him and he's got like a snaggle tooth, or he's got like buck teeth up front, or if he's missing several teeth, and or he looks British or something like that. That would be a little bit tougher. But if he had great white teeth, then I think it would be a little bit easier at that point. But all that to say, this is all good in favor of Judah. And remember, we talked about Judah earlier on, about how he is the one who really defends Benjamin, who says, I cannot bring my brothers back and not bring Benjamin back to my father. Please keep me here as a servant to you. This is what he tells Joseph before Joseph reveals himself. Judah is also the one that says, let's sell our brother to the Ishmaelites instead of killing him. And so Judah really is the voice of mercy. And because of that, I really think that the blessing of having the Messiah come from, his line is as a result of that. And so, like I've said in the past, there are a few moments in life that are really, really important where we have to get it right. And I think Judah got it right at the correct moments, defending his brother, keeping him alive, protecting him, putting himself in his brother's place. Those are really important moments, and it seems God wants to honor those as well. Okay, moving on to Zebulun. So the next few brothers we don't know as much about. Really, these first four in the last two are the ones that we get to learn a lot about in Scripture. But these other ones we don't know about quite as much until we meet their tribes. So Zebulun shall dwell at the seashore. He shall have a haven for ships, and his flank shall be toward Sidon. So if we look at Israel, let's look at a map of Israel really quick. So Zebulun's area would have been right here beneath the Galilee, I believe. And so while he doesn't have exact coastline, it's very possible that he had direct access to the coastline, which is why he would have benefited from, merchant ships and that type of thing. And that's why that prophecy would have come true for him. And so Zebulun's an interesting character. We don't know a lot about Zebulun. We really learn more about his tribe later on. And so that's what happens with Zebulun. He doesn't get a very long prophecy at all, but we can say that his is all good. So, all good. Then we have Issachar. 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 Issachar is like a strong-boned donkey, crouching down between the sheepfolds. When he saw that the resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulders to bear burdens and became a servant of forced labor. So when we look at Issachar, his area that he inherits later on, his people, is known for agricultural strength. Issachar's fertile and land often meant that they were under foreign tributes. And so when Israel would be conquered, or when they would have to give tribute to another land, a lot of times that was through agriculture. And they would have to give up crops, or they'd have to give up seeds and these different things. And it looks like that burden a lot of times fell on the tribe of Issachar. So this isn't really a bad thing. It's not necessarily a great thing either, having to be the burden, having to be the servant. But it's not bad. So we'll give him an all good today. All good. Okay, then we have the tribe of Dan. Tribe of Dan. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a venomous serpent in the way, a fanged snake in the path that bites the horse's heel so that the rider falls backwards. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. So, honestly, I don't understand this one very much. When we look at this one, we're going to give it a good and bad. Good and bad. I don't necessarily understand this one all that well. One thing I know for certain is that Samson, the judge of Israel, the one who had superhuman strength, who did all these incredible things, but was also a real thorn in Israel for a little while as well. He is from the tribe of Dan. So this could be in reference to Samson coming along later. Dan also introduced Israel to idolatry. This could be the thing that bites them over and over and over and causes them to stumble. Idolatry definitely is But I honestly don't know exactly what this is in reference to. It could be in reference to Samson and kind of his chaotic life. Um, but it also definitely could be in reference to, idolatry brings them to their knees over and over and over throughout their history, where they want to serve God, but they also want to serve all these other gods at the same time. And God does not want to share his space with anybody. And so they do kind of end up being the one that causes Israel to stumble over and over. And so Dan shall be a venomous serpent in the way. If there's a better way to describe idolatry, I don't know what it is, because that's pretty good. So this one's good and bad, because Dan does judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. And I guess that's pretty good. That could be in reference to Samson. Samson does end his life well by destroying a lot of Israel's enemies. And so this is kind of good and bad for them. Okay, number 7. Number 7 is Gad. As for Gad, a raiding troop shall raid him, but he shall raid at their heels and assault them victoriously. So this one as well is good and bad. It's kind of a prophecy like, hey, you're going to be attacked repeatedly, but when you are attacked, you will be able to chase them down and recover what has been stolen and, vindicate yourselves. And so this is not really a great prophecy. It's not really that bad of a prophecy either. I mean, obviously from Simeon and Levi, it could be worse for sure. But this could be in reference to the fact that they are raided by different people groups often throughout the rest of their history. And God is able to overtake them again and be victorious. And so it's good and bad for them. Some of these are quite short. So our next one, Asher, is just one line. I can write that better. Asher. So we have Asher. Asher's food supply shall be rich and bountiful, and he shall yield and deliver royal delights. This is all good. This could be in reference to their area being agriculturally centered. This could be in reference to his area being very, very fertile and producing all of these good foods. Possibly, maybe he's the one that fed the king in the royal court. This could have been one of their jobs. And so this is all good for them. This isn't quite as specific as, Reuben or Judah, but, it's not bad either. Next one is Naphtali. Let's write that down. Naphtali. Naphtali is a doe let loose, a swift warrior, which yields branched antlers. And in the Amplified Bible, it adds that possibly this meant eloquent words. And so just at face value, this could have been possibly that they were known for doing very, very well in battle. And possibly maybe the psalmist Asaph was from the tribe of Naphtali. I have no idea which tribe Asaph was from, but it would make sense if which yields branched antlers meant eloquent words. I don't necessarily know how the Amplified Bible understood that, but this could have been what it meant. I'm not really sure. But either way, this is all good for them. This is a good prophecy over this son. All good. All right. This second to last one is the longest by far. And of course, it is for Joseph. Now, Joseph doesn't get a tribe. He actually gets 2 tribes technically, because Ephraim and Manasseh, his 2 sons from Egypt, they become 2 of the tribes of Israel. And we saw that in the last episode where Jacob takes them in as his own. And so there's no tribe of Joseph. There's the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Manasseh. So Joseph gets 2 tribes through his sons. And then we see the tribe of Benjamin, which is the final tribe. And we'll write that here as well. But Joseph by far gets the longest prophecy spoken over him. And here's what it says. Joseph is a fruitful bough, a main branch of the vine. That's what that means. A fruitful bough by a spring, a well, or a fountain. So he's constantly doing well regardless of the season. Its branches run over the wall, influencing others. The skilled archers have bitterly attacked and provoked him. They've shot at him and harassed him. This could be, I think this is kind of in reference to his brothers. Possibly they were skilled archers and they were very good warriors. And they've been kind of setting their sights on him his entire life. But says his bow remained firm and steady in the strength that does not fail. And so he stays strong in the Lord all the time. For his arms were made strong and agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father who will help you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens above, blessings lying deep that couches beneath, blessings of the nursing breasts of the fertile womb, blessings of your father are greater than the blessings of my ancestors Abraham and Isaac. Up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills, they shall be on the head of Joseph, even on the crown of the head of him who was the distinguished one and the one who is prince among his brothers. So, an incredible blessing spoken over Joseph. That's, the blessings of his father. That's basically what he's saying is the blessing that I'm giving you now is even greater than the blessings that were spoken over Abraham and Isaac, my fathers. And so he's really doting on Joseph right here, that you are the prince of your sons. You are kind of the light of my life. You are what I've hoped for. And so even on the crown of the head of him who was distinguished among the one, distinguished one, and the one who is prince among his brothers. I think this was true both literally. He was actually prince in Egypt, but I think Jacob always saw him as a prince among his brothers for his honesty, for his willingness to maintain his character at all points. And so this is an incredible, good prophecy over Joseph. All good spoken over Joseph. And now we arrive at Benjamin, who is strange. Benjamin is the beloved while Joseph is gone for 20 years. But he only gets one verse for his blessing. And it says this: Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey. At night he divides the spoil. So I don't really know what that means, honestly. This could be in reference to a story that's not written down in the Bible. We don't know these boys' entire life story. This isn't a journal with all of their little stories from their entire life. We get to see the most important parts of who they are and what, produced this family. We don't see every little thing in their lives. So this could be in reference to something that happened that's not written in scripture. This also, in my opinion, I think this could be in reference to King Saul. So King Saul is from the tribe of Benjamin. He's the first king of Israel. And he is kind of a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he devours his prey. At night, he divides the spoil. King Saul has the throne ripped from him because he was supposed to completely wipe out the Amalekites, all of their cattle, all of their peoples. This is what God told him to do through Samuel, but he defies God. He keeps the king alive, and he takes all the spoil, all of the animals and livestock, and tries to give it to the people. Samuel, of course, condemns him for this, and he says the throne has been ripped away from you for this moment. And so at night, he divides the spoil. Could absolutely be in reference to King Saul, in my opinion. But it also could be in reference to a story about Benjamin's life specifically that we don't really know. All of this, so let's go ahead and write, we'll write bad with a question mark for Benjamin, because I'm not really sure if this is bad or good, I guess. It's not necessarily bad to be a wolf. devouring the prey. That's what wolves do. And so I guess it kind of makes sense. But um, all of this is a great testimony of the intimacy that Jacob had with the Father. Lots of people have final words, or lots of people, everyone has their last words that they say to the Lord or to their family. But, not everyone is operating in the movement of the Spirit the way Jacob was at this moment. Everybody has final words, but these final words are so miraculous in the way that they not only describe these boys, but they describe well the tribes and the generations that are going to come after them. And so this really is a testament to who Jacob is in his final days, that he's still able to hear from the Lord. He can hear God's voice all the way up until the end. And so the fact that all of these came true is pretty amazing just on its own. Okay, so here it says, all these are the beginnings of the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each one according to the blessing appropriate to him. He charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. So remember, several episodes ago, Abraham buys this field from Ephron the Hittite, and Abraham is buried there, and Sarah is buried there, and Isaac is buried there, and Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Abraham's married to Sarah. Isaac's married to Rebecca and Leah. No. Help me out for a second. I can do this. So Abraham is married to Sarah. Isaac is married to Rebecca and Leah, of course. No, not Leah. Either way, they're all buried there. So I'm getting all their wives mixed up together. So they're all buried there, and that's where Isaac wants to be buried as well. In the cave of the field at Machpelah, east of Mamre, in the land of Canaan, that Abraham bought along with the field of Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burial site. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. They buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. Okay, yeah, I was right. So Leah is there. It doesn't sound like Rachel is there. Rachel had to be buried along the road while they were traveling, which is, it's a very sad thing that she's not buried with the rest of the family, especially because she was the favorite of his wives. But she's buried in Bethlehem, of all places. And I don't know. Maybe it says something about, the darling of the family, Rachel, being buried in the same place where Jesus comes along, of course, the darling of heaven. But, he wants to be buried with his family. That's what he's trying to say. The field in the cave that is it was purchased from the sons of Heth. When Jacob, Israel, had finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people who had preceded him in death. And so this really was his last words. Of course, the Bible is not a medical book, and so possibly it's, these were his final words, and in the coming days, he stopped getting out of bed, and then he finally did pass away. Or it could mean that he said these words, bury me with my father and mother, and then he literally laid back in bed, pulled his feet off the floor, closed his eyes, and was out. And so that's what it could mean. It could mean either one at this point. And so, all right, this leads us to our last chapter of Genesis. This is the final chapter of season 1. We'll begin season 2 promptly next week. And so let's dive into the final chapter of Genesis. This will set us up well for Exodus. So it says this. Then Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept over him and kissed him tenderly. Then Joseph ordered his servants, the physicians, to embalm or mummify his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. This was Jacob. So I bet you never thought about the one of the fathers of Israel being a mummy. We always think about that as being Egyptians, but remember, they've been living in Egypt for 17 years at this point. And so it makes perfect sense that, Joseph being one of the high court officials, that they would go ahead and spend the money to mummify Israel. That's crazy to think about. But either way, he wants to be buried, mummy or not, in the same cave as his father. Now, 40 days were required for this, for that is the customary number of days of preparation required for embalming. So from what I understand, the way embalming would work is that they would take out the organs kind of surgically. Of course, Egypt was very, very advanced, more advanced than we give them credit. Egypt was very advanced. Okay, this is just a side note. This is interesting to think about Egypt. There's so much to know about Egypt. Obviously, it's one of the oldest cities in the world, if not the oldest city. And when we go to the museum and we see relics from Egypt, like when you go to the St. Louis Art Museum, the SLAM in St. Louis, obviously, and you see Egyptian relics there, you can see some that are 2,000 years old and then some that are 4,000 years old. And so it's crazy that we're looking at coins, and the people who are using those coins in their time were looking at the coin next to it also as a relic. And so they've got museums on museums on museums because they're so old. And so they had museums for their old stuff. And we say it's just crazy to think about that we're not the first people to look at old stuff. But either way, Egypt is a fascinating subject. Of course, the pyramids were built by the Nephilim. That's definitely what I believe. You can do with that what you want. But Egypt is a fascinating subject. And from what I remember from reading books as a little kid is that to mummify, they would take out the organs surgically, and then they would close the areas back up and they would put them in jars. Of course, this is all for spiritual reasons that, is full of idolatry. What they do to his body after he dies does not negate his life. And so thankfully that's part of why the Bible says no one can steal you from my hand. And so it doesn't matter what they do to mummify his body for whatever spiritual reasons after he dies. He lived his life in faithful allegiance to the Lord, and so he joins the Lord in heaven. So they take out the organs, and then they would, from what I understand, they would also drain the body of the blood, just like we do today to embalm a body. But then they would put salt and a bunch of salt over the body for 40 days. And that salt would pull the moisture out of the body and dry it out. So that's why a lot of mummies that we unwrap today, some of them still have, few of them still have skin on them. That's because they were mummified so well that it's the moisture that causes things to break down. So if something's dry, it's going to just stay as is. Of course, Egypt is a very dry environment. And so it takes 40 days to do that. And the Egyptians wept and grieved for him in public mourning as they would for royalty for 70 days. So this could have been that, Jacob had become maybe a patriarch by then, or it could have been just, if the president's father passes away or something like that, we're not, I guess, the same culture, but people would be sad. People would talk about it for a long time. There would be documentaries to honor their life. There would be a big funeral service, and it's not because we were all close to the president's father, but it's because this is an important person, Joseph, obviously the second command in Egypt, who's lost his father. And everybody has a father, so everybody can understand that. And it says this: when the days of weeping and public mourning for him were past, Joseph spoke to the nobles of the house of Pharaoh, saying, if I have now found favor in your sight, please speak to Pharaoh, saying, my father has made me swear an oath, saying, hear me, I am about to die. Bury me in the tomb which I prepared for myself in the land of Canaan. So this is Joseph asking Pharaoh on behalf of his father. Now let me go up to Canaan, please, and bury my father there, and I will return. So Pharaoh, of course, loves Joseph. He's made him the richest man there ever was up until then. And Pharaoh said, go up and bury your father as he made you swear. So Joseph went up to Canaan to bury his father with him. And with him went all the officials of Pharaoh. Okay, this is interesting to look at. Just the sheer amount of people that go up with Joseph. So obviously we have Joseph that's going up with them. We have all the officials of Pharaoh. All the officials. The Amplified Bible adds the nobles. So this was, officials and nobles is kind of the same group of people. The elders of his house. The elders. All the nobles of the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the household of Joseph. So all the household of Joseph. So this is a lot of people. This is a train of people all heading up to Canaan to honor this guy who's not even Egyptian. So that's how much they cared for Joseph. All the household of Joseph and his brothers and his father's household, they left only their little ones and their flocks and herds in the land of Goshen. Both chariots and horsemen went up to Canaan with Joseph, and it was a very great company. This is a huge celebration of his life. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they mourned there with a great lamentation, expressions of mourning for the deceased, and extreme demonstrations of sorrow according to the Egyptian customs. And Joseph observed a 7-day mourning for his father. When the inhabitants of the land of the Canaanites saw the mourning of the threshing floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning for the Egyptians. So they didn't take this as a celebration of the life of an Israelite or someone who lived in Canaan. So there was so much in this train of Egyptians that the surrounding peoples thought, wow, somebody great in Egypt, an Egyptian, has died. And so just kind of take that all into context of this is how big a deal Joseph was. Therefore, the place was named Abel Mizraim, mourning of Egypt, and it is west of the Jordan. So this is between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan. So this is the final section of Genesis. I'm going to try to read most of this together. So Jacob's sons did for him as he commanded them. For his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, which Abraham bought, along with the field as a burial site from Ephron the Hittite. After he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who had gone up with him. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph carries a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong which we did to him? So they're thinking, maybe it's our father that's kept his hand at bay for all this time, but now that dad's gone, that he actually has the power to destroy us. So they sent word to Joseph saying, your father commanded us before he died, saying, this is like a posthumous, this is a letter from beyond the grave. It says, you are to say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did you wrong. Now please forgive the transgression of your servants of the God of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. So I emailed one of my professors asking about this because I'm not even sure that Jacob wrote this. I think that it's very possible that they were so scared of Joseph and his authority at this point that they made up this letter just to save their hides. And so maybe he's weeping because Joseph is seeing now that these 17 years together, they still don't understand that he's forgiven them. Maybe he's seeing this because he actually believes his father didn't think he had forgiven them. Either way, this is a moving moment for Joseph once again. Then his brothers went and fell down before him in confession. They said, behold, we are your servants as slaves. But Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? in the Amplified Bible adds, vengeance is his, not mine. So it's not up to me to take revenge upon you guys. Any vengeance that's taken out will be on behalf of the Lord. You have nothing to fear from me. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present outcome, that many people will be kept alive as they are to this day. Of course, we know that Joseph is the one who interprets Pharaoh's dream. They are able to save up for 7 years all the crops because 7 years of famine were coming. And many millions of people lived because Joseph was there and because of really the actions of his brothers. So now, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and support you, you and your little ones. So he comforted them, giving them encouragement and hope, and spoke with kindness to their hearts. Last part of Genesis. Now Joseph lived in Egypt, and he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw the third generation of Ephraim's children. So I'm not sure if this is his great-grandchildren or his great-great-grandchildren, but suffice it to say he got to see his family live a long time. Joseph saw the third generation of Ephraim's children, and also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were born and raised on Joseph's knees. So he got to be a grandfather. Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely take care of you and bring you up out of this land to the land which he promised you to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to give you. So the prophecy still lives on. We're not going to stay in Egypt forever. We will go back to Canaan someday. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath, saying, God will surely visit you and take care of you, returning you to Canaan. And when that happens, you shall carry my bones up from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him and put him in a coffin in Egypt. So we know later on, when Moses comes and sets the Israelites free and leads them out of Egypt, that they carry this 400-year-old coffin out of Egypt and bury him in Canaan later on. And so that prophecy and that declaration does come true later on, but it does take a long time. And so that's the end of Joseph. That's the end of the brothers as well. In the first few verses, by verse 8 of Exodus, we've jumped ahead 400 years. And so this is really the end of the story of these boys. And this is the end of Genesis. This is the end of the beginning. So if you have tuned in with us this long, I'm so glad that you've joined us for the book of Genesis. Next week, we're going to be starting the book of Exodus. And if you thought I knew a lot about Genesis, just wait till we read Exodus, because I love reading the book of Exodus together. And so thank you so much for joining us. As always, this has been the Amplified Podcast.